Just over 100 days after it began, the David Hogg experiment at the Democratic National Committee is over. On Wednesday night, 89% of DNC members took an online vote. By a 75-25 margin, they said that they wanted to redo the vice chair vote, which means that everyone who was a DNC vice chair is out, and that includes David Hogg. Now, the way they did this is some weird provision about the rules of the DNC, but let's be honest. Here's why they did it. David Hogg, the 25-year-old activist who came to prominence when his school in Parkland, Florida was the site of a mass shooting, was causing major waves in the party. He had led a group, in addition to being a DNC vice chair, he had led a group that is aimed at beating older Democratic incumbents in primaries and raised $20 million for that group. He had not played nice with DNC Chairman Ken Martin. It's all one big cluster. And yes, that's a technical term. So Hogg announced after the vote that was getting rid of him, sort of, at least calling for a redo of the election. He said, ultimately, I have decided to not run in this upcoming election so the party can focus on what really matters. So he could have stood again to try to be vice chair. That would have been an interesting vote. But he stepped down, I think, under the I'm not going to go somewhere I'm not wanted. Now, this has been a while coming, right? If you followed this story, Hogg and the Democratic National Committee establishment have been clashing basically since he got there. And I think it was always going to be a weird marriage because it was a marriage of sort of political convenience. So Ken Martin, who is the chairman of the DNC, he's a very establishment guy, a guy who sort of like comes out of the state party infrastructure. He's not a shake it up kind of guy. He's a status quo guy. Hogg is not, right? He's a 25-year-old guy, came to prominence as a gun control advocate. He sort of morphed into a broader liberal advocate. And he was always going to be an odd fit within a party infrastructure. But the party, I think, thought, okay, he's galvanized a lot of people. He's young. Maybe he can bring younger people in, particularly younger men, into the party. We need a fresh face. Well, that didn't work at all. So I think the blame is plenty. I mean, it was always weird, I think, to try to bring him in. So I think the party establishment, Ken Martin, etc., they deserve some blame. Although they can't really control the vice chair race, but regardless. But on Hogg's end, he didn't really play nice. You can't lead a group that is aimed at beating Democratic incumbents if you are part of the Democratic National Committee. It's right there in the job title, right? You're a party official. You can't be doing that. So I think that this is less about Hogg in particular and much more about the party is sort of a little bit lost, which I've made this point before. I'll make it again. I tend to think that they probably should find a way to do an entire clean slate, get rid of Martin, get rid of the vice chairs, elect a whole new group, maybe someone like a Rahm Emanuel or someone else who's just new, who can shake things up, who can raise money, who can do all these things. Martin seems to me to be struggling badly so far. We're 6 months in. He's really not doing well. The main story for Martin has been this David Hogg storyline. And then for young liberals, I think they have to decide, is the Democratic Party right for you? Hogg was for Medicare for all. He had supported efforts to defund the police. He had supported efforts to abolish the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Bureau. And, those views might be popular among a sliver of the left, but they're not broadly popular within the Democratic Party. And they're certainly not popular in the general public. So it's like, okay, well, what do the David Hoggs of the world do in the Democratic Party? Is there a home for them? Or do they leave and, become Democratic socialists or something else? Right now, it's a very uneasy alliance, if it's an alliance at all. So I don't think anyone should be surprised that this happened. I've been talking and writing about this. The writing was on the wall that Hogg was going to be. But I do think it raises an issue of who is the Democratic Party? Who do they want to be? How big is their tent? And can they find ways to bring in people like a David Hogg who, might not be an obvious person that they need, but too far to the left probably, but they need young voices, right? How do they incorporate those young voices into the broader Democratic Party, because remember, Donald Trump won young men, 18 to 29-year-old men. He won them 49-48 in the 2024 election. Now, David Hogg is not a Donald Trump voter, but more broadly, young men are a problem for the Democrats. They are not winning them, and certainly not by the margins they once did. So this reflects poorly on the Democratic Party. They need to get their, call it, stuff together and get it together fast, because they've spent 6 months talking about internal fights between the DNC chair and the DNC vice chair, and they need to start talking about Democrats, Republicans, a whole lot more. All right, everyone, I hope you subscribe. Hit that button. It's free, and it helps me. Take care.